When life knocks you hard, when all the things you thought you could control turn out to fall apart, the initial reaction is to push back against the pain, to battle it, to avoid it, to ask, why me? But the thing is, pain isn't intended to break you. It's intended to mold you. It's life's greatest chiseler, stripping away all the unnecessary until what's left is something raw, real, and unbreakably strong. I know it's difficult to believe that pain can be a gift when you're living through it. When you're broken, when each breath is like a weight, and when even rising from bed feels like a mountain climb. But that's precisely where the rebuilding process starts. It starts when you allow yourself to be still rather than run from pain and listen to what it's teaching you. Pain has its own vocabulary. It speaks in quiet, in wakeful nights, in secret tears. And if you listen closely, you'll know it's not attempting to shatter you. It's attempting to wake you up. It's letting you know something in you has to shift, has to grow, has to release what no longer holds value. We tend to believe strength is never falling apart, but real strength is sitting with your pain, facing it without turning away. When Muniba Mazari was talking about her accident, the day her life totally transformed, she explained that initially she thought her life was over. But as the days went by, she understood that her pain was not her enemy. It was her rebirth. Her brokenness was the reason she found a deeper version of herself, one that could emerge from the ashes and still smile. When you start to accept your pain rather than denying it, you begin to take back your power. Because pain steals your power only if you don't allow it. The instant you accept it, the instant you say, yes, it hurts, and I will feel it all, that's where healing starts. You can't rebuild yourself if you're living in denial that you weren't broken. There's beauty in brokenness, a strength that's only known to those who have faced the storm. And when you finally stop hiding your scars, they become reminders of survival, symbols that you were tested and survived. Because, see, each wound you bear is an invitation to grow into the person you were always meant to be. Pain does not remove your story, it gives it purpose. Consider how a seed must break open before it can grow into a tree. That breaking point, that crack, is how growth happens. Similarly, each painful thing you've had to go through is setting you up for something better. It's teaching you patience, compassion, resilience, and humility, the things that can't be learned in comfort. So rather than saying, why did this happen to me? Say instead, what is this trying to teach me? That slight change of attitude makes all the difference. It shifts pain from being a punishment to a purpose. It converts despair into direction. It provides you with a reason to continue moving forward, even when you don't know where you're going. Muniba reminds us time and time again that adversity does not create who we are. How we respond to it does. When she decided to accept her pain, she discovered a new identity, not the one that was wheelchair-bounded, but the one that was strength-bounded, creativity-bounded, and optimism-bounded. Pain is a human universal. Everybody suffers from it. No one is immune from it. But what makes a difference between those who remain broken and those who rebuild themselves is one simple fact: acceptance. As you own your pain, you allow yourself to heal. You come to realize that pain does not equal the end of your book. It's the opening line of a new chapter. And that chapter, although composed through tears, someday will be read like a testament of bravery, reminding others that even in how deep the gash is, the human spirit possesses the incredible capacity to start anew. Acceptance is one of the most difficult things that life teaches us, but also the most freeing. When it all shifts at once, when the plans you constructed come crumbling down, when the people you depended on walk away, or when your body or circumstances betray you, it seems impossible to just accept what is. We're taught to combat, to mend, to resist. But there's a point where you see that to continue fighting the things that cannot be changed just makes your pain greater. That's when acceptance is not a weakness, but a desperate act of courage. When Muniba Mazari shared her experience after the accident that paralyzed her, she explained how she could not even bring herself to glance in the mirror initially. Her own reflection looked like a stranger's. She could not accept who she had become, and each day she struggled with her new life, repeating questions that couldn't be answered. But one day, she quit saying why and began to say what now? That is when everything started to change. Acceptance did not mean she loved her hurt or that she was comfortable with what occurred. It meant she quit allowing the past to control her. True acceptance doesn't involve quitting, it involves releasing. It involves releasing your hold on what you believe life ought to be, so you can start working with what life actually is. When you accept your reality, you also stop wasting energy on denial and begin directing it towards rebuilding. You start finding peace in the present moment rather than being stuck in what might have been. And in that peace, even if it's quiet and fragile initially, you have clarity. You start to realize that you can't dictate everything that occurs to you. You do get to dictate how you react. Acceptance becomes the key to healing because it hushes the resistance within your heart. It lets you breathe once more. When you finally utter, "Yes, this occurred. This is my reality," you stop running from your pain and start walking through it. It's a journey that takes time. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days you'll feel like you're falling apart, but that's okay. Acceptance doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds gradually, like dawn breaking after a long night. Muniba's tale is evidence of the power of acceptance. The moment she accepted her condition, she gained new purpose. She resumed painting, making colors speak in ways words could not. She became a voice for the hopeless, reminding them that life does not cease when your situation changes. It evolves. By accepting, she found a strength she never knew she had within her. There is a lovely paradox in acceptance. When you can no longer fight your pain, it no longer controls you. You come to realize that even as you can't return to who you were before, you can continue to move forward as someone who has been made wiser, more loving, and stronger. Acceptance teaches you how to live alongside your scars, not as reminders of failure, but as evidence of your survival. It reminds you to reverence your story, all the chapters of it. The happy ones, the sad ones, and the ones that almost destroyed you. And once you embrace yourself, imperfections and all, the world's judgment loosens its hold. You stop measuring your value in terms of what you lost, but in terms of what you gained. You come to stop waiting for life's ideal version to come around and start living to the fullest within the one you already have. Because acceptance, fundamentally, is not about resigning yourself to fate. It's about taking back your power to choose peace over pain, hope over despair, and self-love over self-pity. That's when restoring really gets started. Not when life gets back to perfect, but when you finally accept the imperfection. We are in a world that is constantly telling us what beauty and power should be like. Perfect faces, perfect physiques, unwavering confidence, and the illusion of happiness as something created by how we look on the outside. But when life shatters you open, when your image no longer conforms to what the world admires, you start to see that beauty and strength are not skin deep, they are soul deep. Redefining beauty and strength is learning how to perceive yourself beyond the visible, and accepting the pieces of you that pain has changed. Muniba Mazari's journey is a testament to that change. She was in the hospital for months after her accident, her body locked away, her dreams destroyed. She has said that she couldn't stand to look at her scars or at herself for a very long time. She believed that she had lost her beauty, walking, being able to move about without restriction, being the shape that the world defines as perfect. But as the years passed, she came to understand that her scars were not proofs of brokenness, they were proof of survival. Her wheelchair did not limit her. It defined her. It became a throne upon which she could demonstrate to the world what strength truly is. True beauty starts the moment you give up trying to conform to the world's standards and begin celebrating your own truth. It's in the quiet confidence of knowing who you are, even when everything else around you has changed. Beauty is in the courage to keep going each day, despite the pain, in the kindness you give to others, even when your own heart is hurting, in the ability to smile through tears. Strength is not about never falling, it's about getting up again, softer but stronger, broken but brave. When you redefine beauty, you allow yourself to be whole, with your flaws. The most gorgeous souls are not those that have been untouched by struggle, but those who have walked through flames and come out with hearts ablaze with light. Muniba is a constant reminder to say, you are the hero of your own story. And that's the definition of true strength. It's not the lack of weakness. It's the choice to continue on in spite of it. When you accept your flaws, they are your uniqueness, the areas of your history that make you human, relatable, and inspiring. Consider this. The most powerful individuals that you know are not necessarily the loudest or the most assertive. They're the ones who have suffered the most, the ones who have fallen and risen again and again without realizing it. Their strength is their strength of character, their humility, and their capacity to love long and hard after knowing what loss is. That's what it means to be really strong, quiet, consistent, and unbreakable. Redefined beauty and strength also translate to reframing how we perceive others. When you've walked through hurt, you start to find beauty in the real, the raw, and the not so perfect. You no longer look up to perfection and instead covet what is real. You see that everyone's got unseen battles and yet they still show up. That in itself is beautiful. Muniba's story teaches us that the most excruciating experiences of life can bring forth the greatest strength. She didn't allow her scars to gag her. She made them speak for her. She turned her pain into hues, spoke her voice to millions, and demonstrated that strength lies not in the body, but in the spirit. She became the kind of beautiful the world needs more of, the kind that inspires others by being authentic. So the next time you glance in the mirror and pay attention to what you've lost, keep in mind what you've gained. Every scar is a history, every tear a lesson, every defeat a metamorphosis. When you cease defining yourself by what you observe within the glass of the mirror and begin defining yourself by what you bear within your heart, you'll find a type of beauty that never dies and a power that can move mountains. Life tends to challenge us in times we least anticipate. When everything finally appears to be going smoothly, an event occurs which rips the ground from beneath our feet. It might be the loss of a dream, a loved one, a career, or even your own personal sense of direction. Detours are unavoidable. They are human nature. But what really makes us who we are is not the fall. It's the rising after the fall. Every failure is contained within it the germ of a return, if only we dare to seek it out. Muniba Mazari's life is the best reminder of this fact. When her car wreck altered her life forever, she didn't merely lose the ability to walk. She lost her future, her identity, and her plans. For a moment, everything seemed over. But then slowly she realized that maybe it wasn't over at all. It had simply started differently. What she previously perceived as a debilitating defeat became the foundation of an even higher mission. Her agony brought her to find her voice, her art, and her message to the world. Her return was not about returning to walk. It was about rising in spirit, imagination, and fortitude. Turning misfortune into fortune begins with a decision. The decision that your tale isn't over, because one chapter ended tragically. It's simple to allow setbacks to define you, to allow frustration to toughen you up, or to make you think you're no longer capable. But the fact is, setbacks don't shut doors, they steer you toward new ones. Sometimes the things that break are the very things that make space for something new to be created. When you're faced with a setback, you naturally feel lost or hopeless. But it's in those moments of uncertainty that they become the fertile ground for growth. They compel you to stop, to think, to construct anew with more purpose. You begin to ask more profound questions. Who am I without this? What matters most to me now? And within those questions is transformation. You start to realize that your value was never tied to where you were, that it resides within you unmoved, ready to be rediscovered. Failures teach humility too. They remind you that life is unpredictable and control is an illusion. But in that humility, you find empathy, the capacity to connect with others through shared experience. That's what makes your comeback not just powerful for you, but inspiring for others. When people see someone rise after being broken, they see possibility reflected back at them. Your comeback becomes a beacon of hope for those still trapped in their pain. Muniba used to say, "When you accept yourself the way you are, the world recognizes you." Her return wasn't about altering her situation, but about altering her mindset. She ceased waiting for life to revert to the way it used to be and began building a fresh version of life on her own terms. She became an artist, a voice, an inspiration not despite her failure, but because of it. Her wheelchair came to represent freedom, not confinement. That's the beauty of perspective. It can transform tragedy into change. So, when life pushes you down, give yourself time to grieve, to feel, to fall apart if need be. But when you're ready, seek out the lesson that's hiding in the pain. Tell yourself that every storm has a life expiration date, and that every ending is a chance for a new beginning. Your comeback doesn't have to be dramatic. It may simply be deciding to smile again, dream again, believe again. All inspiring tales of resilience start with a fall. The glory is not in being able to avoid failure, but in being able to rise every time wiser, stronger, and more compassionate. Keep in mind that your failures do not determine your fate. Your reaction to them does. You are not what you experienced. You are what you decide to become afterward. And that choice, that quiet, powerful decision to rise, is what transforms a setback into an unforgettable comeback. Positivity is often misunderstood. People think it means pretending everything is fine when it's not, smiling when your heart is breaking, or ignoring pain as if it doesn't exist. But real positivity isn't about denial. It's about perspective. It's about deciding to dwell on what you can control rather than what you can't, seeing light even when all seems dark, and reminding yourself that every storm should pass. Real positivity is strength disguised, the silent type that hums, "I will overcome this," even when the world around you shouts otherwise. Muniba Mazari is such strength. Following her accident, she lay in bed for months, motionless, struggling not only with pain but despair. She had all the reasons in the world to give up, to let resentment rule her. But instead of being submerged in darkness, she decided to seek beauty in what had become her reality. She painted again with hues of hope instead of sadness. She chose that if her body could not move, her mind could. That choice, that simple exercise of choosing hope over despair, altered everything. Discovering power in hope does not eliminate your pain. It means you begin to perceive pain differently. You begin to perceive difficulties as possibilities for growth, and heartbreak as evidence that you had dared to love intensely. You understand that life is not flawless, yet it's not bad to live with appreciation. Positivity is not a perpetual grin. It's a state of mind where you are able to see past your current circumstances and have faith that there are better times ahead. It's a reference point in turmoil, a source of strength that says your situation may mold you, but it doesn't have to create you. What makes positivity so strong is that it alters the energy you introduce into each moment. When you decide to perceive what's good, even if it's teeny, tiny, you move your attention from what's lacking to what's potential. That transition not only heals you, it motivates others. Muniba once explained that when people see her, they think she's stuck in a wheelchair. But when they hear her laugh, when they hear her talk, they see so much more. A woman who shines. That's what positivity does. It turns your presence around. It makes you a beacon of hope to others just by existing. In pain, it's so easy to get caught up on what's lost. But look closely, and even in pain, there are little blessings. The friend who remained, the knowledge you gained, the inner strength you never knew you possessed. They are the little miracles we tend to miss because we're too caught up in the darkness. Positivity reminds us to see them, to cling to them, and to let them move us forward. It's not about pretending your pain doesn't exist. It's about pairing it with gratitude. And positivity is something you must actively choose to do on a daily basis. There are mornings when you'll get up ready to battle, other days it will take every ounce of will you have to even roll out of bed. That's okay. On those days, being positive can be as simple as reminding yourself, I'm still here, I'm still fighting. That tiny act of rebellion, not throwing in the towel, is positivity in its most basic form. Muniba frequently explains that she didn't have a choice to end up in a wheelchair, but she did have a choice to be happy. And that was empowering. She reminds us that happiness is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of strength in their presence. When you choose to see light in darkness, you start to rebuild your inner world. One thought, one breath, one act of courage at a time. So if life has shattered you, if you find yourself surrounded by shards of what once was, please try to seek out one thing, just one, that still gives you calm. Concentrate on it. Tend to it. Let it remind you that the tale isn't finished yet, because positivity isn't ignoring the hurt. It's deciding to have faith that something lovely can still emerge from it. And when you walk with that belief, you begin to survive no more but live again. Your narrative counts, not because it's flawless, but because it's genuine. Each scar, each rip, each moment you believed you wouldn't survive has molded you into who you are today. And though it's simple to believe your struggles are something to keep concealed, they're really your biggest place of power. When you open yourself up and tell your story, you give space to others to heal as well. You remind them that they're not alone, that suffering is possible to survive, and that beauty can yet be created out of brokenness. Muniba Mazari's story is evidence of the strength of telling your story. She might have remained silent. She might have cloaked herself behind her suffering and lived silently, outside the perception of the world. But she didn't. She made her story a message that still inspires millions of people today. When she's on stage speaking of her accident, her desperation, and her change, she's not looking for sympathy. She's giving strength. She's saying, if I am able to get up after losing everything that I believed made me who I am, so are you. That's what the power of vulnerability does. It bridges hearts more intimately than ever was possible with perfection. When you tell your story, you reclaim the power from the pain that once had power over you. You move from victimhood of your situation to the writer of your story. It's not dramatizing what occurred. It's taking ownership of it with courage and honesty. Your story is your power because it contains truth, and truth resonates. It touches those who might be suffering in secret, people yearning to hear that recovery exists. So many of us suffer believing we have to do so in isolation. But by sharing your story, you license others to meet theirs. You are a reflection in which they can see their own strength held up. That's what Muniba does whenever she speaks. She turns her suffering into purpose. She colors in her history with color, hope, and light, not with sorrow. Through her, others discover that the death of a dream can signal the start of another. Inspiring others through your story isn't a matter of standing in front of an audience or talking to thousands. Sometimes it's as easy as offering a hug to a friend, listening uncritically, or saying to someone, "I've been there too, and I made it out." Inspiration doesn't always bellow. Sometimes it is softly spoken through an act of kindness and compassion. The bravery to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to allow others to see your path is what makes your tale mighty. It's also worth noting that your story doesn't have to be complete before it's going to inspire someone. You don't need to know everything. Even if you're not yet healed, the fact that you're willing to share where you are can pick up someone who is one step back from you. Imperfection is much stronger than perfection. People don't relate to perfect stories, they relate to truth. Muniba frequently mentions that her wheelchair provided her with a platform she did not seek out, yet she decided to employ it for a positive cause. She took what hurt her and made it into something purposeful by speaking up for the voiceless. That is the definition of transformation. When you take what has hurt you in the past and make it into something to heal others. Your own story has the same capacity. So don't conceal your scars. Don't be afraid to speak your truth. Your pain might be the very thing that gives someone else the strength to keep going. And in sharing it, you'll realize that you're not just rebuilding yourself, you're helping others rebuild too. Because when one person rises, they light the way for countless others to do the same. Forgiveness is one of the most difficult, but most freeing acts of healing. It's not something that occurs overnight, and it's not something that is easily done. Certainly not when you've been hurt like that. But if rebuilding yourself equates to making peace within, then forgiveness has to be the groundwork upon which that peace must be built. Because the thing is, as long as you hold resentment, you are still bound to the pain that shattered you. Letting go does not entail forgetting what occurred. It entails deciding not to allow it to consume your life anymore. Muniba Mazari frequently discusses the fact that forgiving was one of the strongest actions she took on her path. Following the accident that transformed her life, she might have taken years blaming the individual who was involved, blaming destiny, even herself. But she knew that holding on to anger only held her back more than her wheelchair ever would. Forgiveness for her was not letting anyone off the hook for their actions. It was taking back her freedom. When she forgave, healing started. When she released, living resumed. When you hold on to resentment, it's a rope that binds you to the past. Each time you replay the hurt in your head, you relive it. You empower it. But when you forgive, you reclaim that power. You say, "Yes, this hurt me, but I choose to rise above it." That's not weakness. That's strength in its most basic, beautiful form. Forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was acceptable. It means you're no longer going to let it dictate who you are. The hardest person to forgive sometimes is yourself. We criticize ourselves for not knowing sooner, for trusting the wrong individuals, for being wrong, for not being strong enough. But rebuilding yourself entails accepting that you did the best you could do with what you knew at the time. You don't have to be burdened by guilt for being human. Self-forgiveness is the ticket to moving forward. Once you cease punishing yourself for the past, you create room for growth, compassion, and renewal. Forgiveness also brings emotional clarity. When you release anger, you have space for peace. When you release resentment, you have space for joy to come back in. Muniba frequently reminds us that forgiveness does not alter the past, but it alters the future. Because when your heart is released from hatred, you start viewing life in a different way. You start viewing people in a different way. You start viewing yourself in a different way. Letting go does not equate to erasing what occurred. The memories will remain, but they will cease to hurt so much. With time, there'll be reminders of how far you've traveled, not of how broken you used to be. Forgiveness turns wounds into wisdom. It enables you to view your scars and say, "This no longer defines me. It shaped me." It requires great bravery to forgive, particularly when the wound goes deep. Yet forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with you. It has to do with liberating your spirit from the burden that holds you back from taking flight. It has to do with selecting peace over agony, light over darkness, love over resentment. Because the instant you release, you start ascending. Muniba's existence is evidence that forgiving is not something you do once, but a daily process, a choice you make each day to pick freedom over rage. It's hard, but it's worth it. When you forgive, you allow room for healing, for love, and for the type of happiness pain can't ruin. So, if you're clinging to something that has held you back, perhaps it's time to let go. Not for them, but for you. Because you deserve peace. You deserve to have a life again without being weighed down by the past. And when you do, you'll discover that forgiveness isn't losing. It's recovering everything your pain worked so hard to steal from you, your strength, your smile, and your ability to live again without the burden of it all hanging over you like the sword of Damocles. Pain transforms you. It peels away all that you believed about yourself and your world. It leaves you standing among the ruins, not knowing who you are anymore. But what most don't know is that pain, if approached with courage, can be the genesis of purpose. It's in our darkest hours that we tend to find out what really matters, who we truly are, and what we are called to contribute to the world. Muniba Mazari's life is a very true reflection of this fact. It would have been so easy for her to just fade away, to live in self-pity and silence after her accident. But she did not do that. She instead posed herself a simple but effective question. If this happened to me, then what can I do with it? This was the turning point in her life. She discovered her purpose in her suffering, to motivate others to stand up from their own adversity. She turned into a voice of resilience, a symbol of strength, and an artist whose work embodies the beauty of transformation. What started as tragedy turned into a mission that now reaches millions. Pain makes you look at yourself. It takes away all illusions and distractions, leaving you confrontational with your truest self. In such silence, you start to hear the faint whisper of your purpose. Perhaps it's to assist others who've also walked the same way. Perhaps it's to create, to educate, to serve, or to love more fully. Pain has an odd ability to open your eyes to the pain of others, to the brevity of life, and to the amazing resiliency of the human spirit. And once you have had that awakening, it's just not possible to return to living the same way anymore. Your purpose tends to arise out of your wounds. The very thing that had previously shattered you is the wellspring of your strength. Muniba didn't discover her purpose despite her suffering. She discovered it because of it. Her wheelchair, which was once a reminder of what she had lost, was transformed into a beacon of hope. Her art, which had initially been a means of mourning, turned into joy and freedom. Her words, which were the offspring of pain, turned into words of empowerment. She transformed her suffering into strength, and her wounds into wisdom. Finding purpose doesn't equate to your pain vanishing. It's when you've made the choice to give it meaning. You've made the choice that what hurt you won't be wasted. Each time you tell your story, create something beautiful, or pick up one who's fallen, you're turning pain into purpose. You're proclaiming, "This did not break me, it made me." Pain adds depth to your compassion. After you've hurt, you see people more clearly. You become softer with others, gentler, more patient. You start realizing that everybody has something hidden. That's what becomes your mission: to love, to heal others the way you healed. Muniba reminds us frequently that the tests of life are not punishment, but wake-up calls. They are reminders that we are not dead yet, that we still have something to offer. We find meaning in pain, we find direction in meaning, and we find joy again, not the transitory kind that occurs through comfort, but the enduring kind that occurs through contribution. So if you are hurting today, Understand that this is not the end of your book. This may be where your real purpose starts. Don't hurry healing. Hear what your pain is telling you. Somewhere deep in it is the germ of something beautiful. A dream, a vocation, a message that only you can bring into the world. Your mission is waiting to be found, and your suffering is guiding you there. When you finally understand that the two are intertwined, you will cease asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What is this teaching me to give?" That's when your life is transformed. Because when pain is turned into purpose, and suffering is turned into strength, and your story is a light to guide others out of the darkness. When life breaks and you set about rebuilding yourself, progress will always seem glacially slow. You glance at how much further you have to go and forget to notice just how far you've already traveled. But it's not about taking giant leaps. It's about taking small, consistent ones. Each breath you draw after hurting, each morning you opt to wake again, each smile you are able to wear when your heart is still sore, these are triumphs. They might feel insignificant, but they are the small miracles that make recovery feasible. Muniba Mazari has said herself that the day she learned to accept herself, with all her scars, was the day she really started living once more. That moment did not occur on a stage or before an audience. It occurred alone, in quiet, when she finally decided on gratitude instead of grief. That was a small win, but one that altered everything. It was the beginning of a ripple effect. She started painting again, then talking, then moving millions. Every step, though small then, became part of a much grander transformation. The reality is that we tend to wait for grand achievements to rejoice over: recovery, success, accolades. But the virtue of reconstruction is found within the moments in between. The bravery to attend therapy, the act of forgiveness, the grit to look in the mirror after years, the courage to once again laugh after thinking you would never be able. These moments may not seem spectacular to the outside world, but to your spirit they are gigantic, because each little triumph is evidence that you're still moving forward, still deciding on life, still deciding on yourself. When you begin to notice your little wins, you condition your mind to see hope over loss. You move your attention from what's broken into what's being rebuilt. And that change makes all the difference. Gratitude flourishes where acknowledgement is present. The more you pay attention to the small things, the ones who remained, the things that you learned, the peaceful moments, the more you understand that healing is not about crossing a finish line, but about loving the journey along the way. Muniba's life is filled with such instances. From holding a paintbrush for the first time since her accident, to laughing naturally again after years of suffering, every instance was a step towards life today. She didn't become the Iron Lady of Pakistan in one day. She became her greatest self by garnering small wins, one after the other, until they were a pillar unconquerable by fear or disbelief. Other times, winning small victories means being kind to yourself. It means telling yourself, "I'm proud of me," even when you have a long way to go. It means acknowledging that healing isn't a straight line. Some days you're going to take 2 steps forward and then 1 step backward, and that's okay. That you're moving, no matter how slowly, counts as progress. Every time you decide to continue, even when it seems like it's impossible, you're winning in ways that can't be measured from the outside. Rebuilding yourself is not about reaching perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up for yourself every day, even on the hard ones. The strength you're building in those small moments is the kind that lasts, the kind that no one can take away from you. So, celebrate the little victories, the mornings you wake up, the nights you survive, the acts of kindness you still manage to share, the hope that still does not die in you. Those are not small victories. Those are victories. Each one is a step toward becoming the person you were meant to be. And when you look back someday, You'll see that it was the little victories, the ones nobody noticed, that constructed your comeback. They'll remind you that recovery wasn't one glorious moment, but a series of daily decisions to continue believing, to keep attempting, and to keep rising. There is a point, after all the suffering, all the tears, and all the quiet fights, when you finally understand that surviving isn't sufficient. You were meant to rise. Rebuilding yourself is not about putting back the pieces of what was lost. It is about building something new from the rubble. It is about emerging as a wiser, gentler, and stronger individual than you were prior to the storm. That is what rising, rebuilding, and radiating hope is all about. To take your pain and make it light, not only for you, but for those who continue to walk in the darkness. Muniba Mazari's life captures this truth beautifully. She didn't simply survive her accident. She rose beyond it. Her wheelchair didn't become a symbol of defeat. It became a symbol of rebirth. Her smile, her art, her voice, they all carry the glow of someone who has walked through fire and come out shining brighter. When she speaks, she emits a sort of hope that does not derive from ease or comfort, but from perseverance. Her story teaches that rising is not about faking that everything is okay. It's about standing up even if you know how fragile life is. To rise is to decide on life over and over again, regardless of how often it tries to knock you down. It's waking up every morning and telling oneself, I'm still here and I still have something to offer. Restoration starts with that choice, the unassuming resolve to take another step, to breathe through another day, to hope that something lovely can still emerge from what is shattered. And as you rise, you know that the cracks in your soul are not flaws. They are the very places where light enters. Rising is not a quick fix. It's a process. Some days you'll rise up with strength and clarity, and some days you'll stumble and question whether you have what it takes to move forward. But even on those days, remember the act of trying is already a form of rising. Each time you opt for hope instead of despair, kindness instead of bitterness, faith instead of fear, you're rebuilding. You're writing a new chapter in your book, one which no longer starts with pain but with grit. And then as you become stronger, something magical happens. Your story starts to emanate hope. They glance at you and notice that it is possible to live once more after loss, to smile again after heartbreak, to dream again after disappointment. Your fearlessness catches on. The manner in which you bear your scars with dignity becomes a guiding light for others who are yet to learn to bear their own. You are a living testament that no fall is irreversible unless you give up rising. Muniba tends to say, when you love yourself fully, the world knows you. It isn't about fame or applause, but about impact, when you rise out of your pain and rebuild with love and sincerity. Your very presence is a message. You remind individuals they too have the power to start again. You remind them that no matter how weighted life gets, the human spirit is heavier still, heavy enough to lift itself up from anything. To give off an aura of hope is to live on purpose, to shine your light even when it dimly flickers. It means not employing your story as a weapon but as a lantern. It's about choosing to be kind even after being hurt, choosing to trust even after being betrayed, choosing to love even after being broken. Undefined, that is the essence of true strength, not a life untouched by pain, but a heart that continues to shine through it. Then rise. Rise not because it is easy, but because your soul is worthy of peace. Rebuild not to go back to who you once were, but to become who you were created to be. And when you do, let your light shine bright. Let your story help others remember that healing is possible, that hope is real, and that no darkness is ever too deep for a human spirit that will not quit. Because ultimately, rising above pain isn't about getting by. It's about changing. It's about becoming the light you once chased. And when you do, when you rise, rebuild, and shine with hope, you don't only heal yourself, you help heal the world.